This project must not accept that around certain questions that they are taboos. We cannot 65 years after being afraid to address questions that concerns us and which are an important point of our sovereignty, namely monetary sovereignty. There is no sovereignty as we want by demanding or fighting for a just, prosperous, sovereign Senegal in an Africa of progress if there is no monetary sovereignty. We need, therefore, reduce the powers of the President of the Republic. And if we have the candidate who is transparent and who does not wait to be elected to eliminate the position of Prime Minister to renew it after, who says that in the perspective of the reduction of the power of the President of the Republic, even if the National Commission for the Reform of Institutions simply tells the executive that it is necessary to rebalance the powers because the institutionalization of the government in the Constitution of 2021 even proceeds from his logic of strengthening the power of the government and rebalance a little bit with the President of the Republic, which has not been done. So he proposed that there be this rebalancing between the President of the Republic and the Prime Minister. So if there is something that we have to reproach me as President of the Republic, it would be to relieve me of a lot of power to rebalance with the one who will be the Prime Minister under my magisterium. The logic remains that it is necessary to reduce the powers of the President of the Republic, give more prerogative to the Prime Minister to enable him to carry out his missions correctly, to apply correctly his mission, and above all, to put an end to the fact that the President of the Republic crushes with all his power the other powers, namely the legislative and the judiciary. We would be doing a great service to this country. We are losing a lot of lives in this country, a lot of injuries, a lot of damage, a lot of negative energy, and finally, we are compromising what we have most seriously, namely national cohesion, just because a man wants to concentrate more than he can bear in terms of power. The best service we can provide to this country is to restore the dignity of justice. The best service we can give back to this country is to rebalance these powers so that Senegal is truly democratic, and I am committed to that. Africa, wake up. Africa, rise up. Africa without borders. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And also, I pay tribute to all these brothers who in the gear of power for months, often years, supported with dignity the weight of the ordeal. I was in Cape Manuel at a given moment with 37 citoyens set politica. Many between them had nothing to do with the demonstration. But it was through the sustained presence of Passive and the coalition at their side that they ended up understanding by becoming more interested in the project and the smear that we were at inside with other people like Professor Sheikh Omar Diakhar and massively adhere to the Passive project in prison. These brothers and sisters supported this ordeal, I said earlier, with a lot of dignity. And I think that those who went to visit him regularly can also, in the same way as we testify to it. Dear President Ousmane Sonko, I would like to thank those who, during our absence, held the boat of this project. There was the coalition, Sonko the President. They were there throughout of our operation. The leaders around the candidacy of Ousmane Sonko to finally lead to the coalition with Diomaye President. But we all realize that it is the same common thread which led to this coalition, which is today the strongest within the framework of this present election. And I said this morning, it is because all these patriots and all these patriots are in love with a just, sovereign Senegal, prosperous in an Africa in progress, that we find ourselves around the essentials. I recall this morning a discussion that I had with the campaign manager, Mustafa Mamba Girassi, who I congratulate for the remarkable coordination of the activities of the coalition. Within the framework of the establishment of the directorate, I told him that whatever the contingencies and the differences, let us all rise above this circumstance and our people, but that Senegal is always above us. Is this project that will unite us today? I would like to congratulate them for their constant commitment, their resilience in any form of oppression, demonization, and slander. When it was not obvious, they were on seat, they marched, they denounced, they show resilience, but above all, intelligent strategy, so that the coalition, it is what it is today. Even though the candidate declared mainly undisputed leader of the opposition, and the present candidate was in prison. I would also like to express all my compassion to all these leaders who took the time it took to think about an authentic program also, as we did on our side, who crisscrossed Senegal, giving their time, their energy, to present their social project to the Senegalese for a positive electoral sanction. That these leaders are rejected just because within the Constitutional Council, an IT specialist in 3 clicks decided that their key is unusable, or that stupid voters regularly registered on the file were not. It is something particularly dangerous. And I will come back to this later. We must all stand up so that we can say in the evening of March 24, 2024, never again in Senegal. Mr. President, you mentioned contacts earlier. I will not go back to everything you said regarding the importance and the necessity in the context, but I just want to make, if I can call them like that, a revelation. It is true that I am perhaps less of a tense than you, a little more utterance. I am someone who is particularly reasonable, particularly sensible, particularly thoughtful. After the event of March 20, 2021, Mr. President Sonko, you will be able to testify. I came to see you when President Macky Sall was saying what happened in Senegal will not happen again. And young people on social network were telling him, if you do it again, we will do worse. I came to you saying there must be discussion. You told me, but why am I saying? Because we cannot continue to look at ourselves at a false dog among Senegalese, and to threaten us with a second confrontation. You also, with all responsibility, give your argument so that I can contact someone in the presidential movement who we think is a correct entry point. While I contained the contact, I set an appointment with President Macky Sall. In the middle of conflict, we decided to go to Kaffrine during COVID-2, and to Matam, to Fouta, by Bostanava Passage of Senegal, who were only wrong to wear the bracelet, the red bracelet, by continuing to arm ourselves, by continuing to recruit for more mates. The results we know. We consider that to discuss, it was necessary to discuss with someone particularly thoughtful and particularly willing to be able to understand why we are trying to overcome this moody wave, which was inevitable going to lead us to the event of June 2023. Unfortunately, we interrupted the contacts because it was not the receptivity displayed on the other side. In 2023, I personally, because I was in prison, you were under blockage. I took responsibility. I informed you subsequently to contact his son after discussion of 3rd July to tell him, from the moment your dad decided to no longer go to the election, you are the only person who can help him live through what remains of the front door. And that all those who want to be candidate today to encourage him to continue the repression. He realized it's too late to try to go back, call for peace, but the damage was already done. The dead will not come back. The amputated will not find their arms or their legs. The woodworkers will not find their eyes. And we will have always patients who are evacuated abroad due to this blind repression. I was not listened to. On the contrary, what was said, they could have negotiated when we were in March 2021 because they were in position of strength. But what did you do in March 2021 during your speech in March 8? You said that President Macky Sall have 2 years left, and that these 2 years, let's supervise him, help him to finish, and that he transmit this country so that we continue to work. There was something that was said, but since we are in a moment of so-called relaxation, and he is no longer our adversity, I think that we can even not go into this relationship just to say that how much we care about consultation and dialogue, and it has always been the posture of passive to continue to maintain this dialogue as long as the condition of it holding or a logic of sincerity, which will lead to conclusion, which will be agreed, conscientiously applied by all stakeholders. We were not listened to in time, and we could have avoided this scar on the face, on the image of Senegalese democracy, of brothers and sisters incarcerated in extremely harsh conditions, difficult of death. We will never return to that again, of traumatized and injured. Who will keep the legacy? Here is Bassirou Diomaye Faye, in all discretion, next to Ousmane Sonko, as part of the project that we are all carried today in the coalition. And yet, I did that after refusing to take the bracelet in prison because it was offered to me after 2 months of incarceration. They came to tell me, okay, we can release you on the condition that you take the bracelet. I said that I will not take the bracelet because I cannot take the bracelet. I didn't do anything. When you finish with your electoral engineer, but put me back where you found me, mainly my office at 10 p.m., illegally arrested. But all that was maintained by people to whom do not take advantage of our candidacy. After the attack on President Ousmane Sonko, they attacked me. Even in the charges of joining the procedure concerning me, there was a theft of a cell phone while I was in prison. President, where is the phone? comfortable to say how much an effort there was to ensure that the candidacy of Bassirou Diomaye Faye did not pass. But sometimes, some people are confused when they are confronted with the political logic of passive project, and which is embodied by the President Ousmane Sonko. I reminded the leader this morning, on January 7, 2024, you were the first during a meeting in which I have not participated because I was bereaved. I asked the question of Plan B. It is political bureau who put you in the minority. Reason why you do not debate this point, because the office do not want to encourage the process of political liquidation. I recall your formula, which described the political logic in which we are already started. To know that Senegal do not need a mask with heroes, but a critical mass of citizens who are aware of issues. Since you are, there was always something that remained. I completed by saying that these youth may have the courage to act, to change things. President, you told me not to talk about Amadou Ba. But generally, you tell me that I am stubborn and that we never agree, even if we are still together. I would just like to complete you. I believe that we have made a text that I have called Bassirou prediction, taken from the political dead. I believe that everything I had predicted in this text, it is almost realized. So, when you left the union, you sent us to Amadou Ba. And in the same way that you had this video, there to reduce in its simple expression the catastrophe that he was facing at the level of taxes and later at the level of the Ministry of Economic and Finance. We continue in this perspective. And in 2016, you can always verify that the Autonomous Union of Tax Agents, in which I was with Wale Jopojan and other organized a press conference to say that enough is enough. Because each time the agent went for tax audit and make adjustment, what billions illegally Amadou Ba decided in a simple letter in violation of the law, which says that no authority can under penalty of being personally responsible for the recovery of taxes and duties of any nature. The first time he did it was in the cement factory case. You even, as an agent, threatened to file a complaint and got a backpayer from him. In 2016, we denounced that he went to organize a press conference to list all the files in which Amadou Ba had compromised the interests of the public treasury and therefore of the Senegalese for the benefit of foreign companies. And we all know that this was not done for free. When I learned that he was involved in corruption and that the one who make him a candidate, I said, because he knows him. I know that if it was me, Ousmane would not ask because he knows that it's not true. So, it's because we know that he's involved in this practice that we wanted to know a little more, and certainly, and history would tell what this practice were one day. This particular, which we call graceful surrender at the time, have been perpetrated. And this year, I had to discuss with the Deputy Guy-Marie Sagna so that he submit a request for the establishment of a parliamentary commission inquiry around the recovery of 150 billion, which they abandoned and take it only 14 million. At the same time, The NGO, Africano-Americanada, if I am not mistaken, with the name, count the number of deaths in the Mediterranean at 6,618. We abandoned 14 billion for 140 billion. And this practice was inaugurated in 10 by Amadou Ba. So, this man, we know very well, the management experience. But the experience of Amadou Ba, personally, I don't want it. I don't want an experience of violation of the law, of an expertise in Cuba, of an expertise in embezzlement. Embezzlement, I don't want. I decided for 15 years that I was in taxes to be a serious, competent, virtuous, orthodox civil servant at the service of my colleagues within the framework of the union commitment were greatly contributed of improving working and living conditions. There is even more serious concerning it. When we have relegated the project of reforms of the tax remuneration system and that we completed the reform and that there was question of transferring a project to the Minister of Budget, Abdoulaye Diallo, who said, if it happens here, I will sign. Amadou Ba was not for the reform, but he could not resist a union and the internal request of the DGIG. What did he do? We put pressure on him because the minister told us, I didn't see it. We questioned. He said, I transmitted under our pressure. You know what he did? He made false number, backdated transmission letter, signed by his hand to give it. When we saw the numbers, the numbering compared to previous totals that we had checked, and on the date we knew that it was not true, and asked the tax agent at that time, that is to say, in 2015, he told us that we have even attacked that in the extract of GGIG. There is even worse, but I will stop there. The project in which you made a choice, which is in line with your own person, in your own political logic, you do not put in advance in person. Beyond the episode of January 7, 2023, I remember when we say the GPS one day and the young people said, we will give our life for you, but you say no, no one should die. Because if even I was not there, you must be able to continue the project. And there were each other's episode where you put the project forward. You took a backseat to show all those who gravitate around the organization that it's not the important thing, it's not the person. As you said earlier, the important thing is not you, the important thing is not me. And if it was just that, these brave men and women who are today grouped around the Diomaye coalition, we could not have continued the tremendous work we did to keep the boat afloat, why we were prevented, why we put all the restrictions on you, even knowing that they forbid us from telephone or talk about politics. To cite my case, this project must not accept that around certain questions that they are taboos. We cannot 65 years after being afraid to address questions that concerns us and which are an important point of our sovereignty, namely monetary sovereignty. There is no sovereignty as we want by demanding or fighting for a just, prosperous, sovereign Senegal in an Africa of progress if there is no monetary sovereignty. The people who are shocked, they are principally two candidates. And they shock them not because the proposals appeals to them in terms of scientificity plan or technicity, but it is because they want to reassure their master. And that is what you were saying earlier. So we must be able today to seek ways and means within the framework of ECOWAS, or me, as you said in your book, Vision Solution for a New Senegal, which supported the project. But also, when we cannot convince our partners to go in the direction which is best for all of us, we cannot indefinitely give up. Acquiring this extremely important part of our sovereignty and this very particularly interesting aspect of financing our economy, which is why in the headquarters of the proposals which was made in 2019, we took up these proposals in regards to the Vice President. Indeed, you reminded me. It was yesterday, March 14, that I spent 11 months till this day in prison, in detention, because I was kidnapped. When I left my office at 10:18 p.m. illegally to the station on April 14, 2023. So I have been 11 months a day, and yesterday, 1 month, 15 days. Yesterday, you came to tell me, okay, now we are going to reduce your visit, but you will no longer be able to call to talk about politics. But how can a candidate for the presidential election cannot speak on the telephone? I have a campaign director. I have a representative with the Constitutional Council. I have a further representative with the Constitutional Council. I have a spokesperson. I have leaders in my coalition. I have leaders with whom I must come into contact to make my coalition. You tell me that I will not talk about politics. What should I talk about? If not, no. If you can just call family to see how they are doing, we will give you the telephone. But otherwise, we will no longer give you the telephone. I say, well, the only option on which you have a master's degree is not to give me a telephone. But if you give me a telephone, I will talk about what interests me currently, and that is my candidacy, and it's an activity political because I am here for political reasons. So there are points on which we could not particularly ask, as we did in 2019, discuss openly between you and the candidate that I am, other persons, and even the leaders, to be able to modulate them as we would have liked on the level of the general ideas, against not taking into account any constraint which may intervene or in a process. I think that we are on the same guideline on which we have been since our entry into politics, and it is something that I believe that in our large majority we share with leaders who are on this side, or who are from other political sides, and who share the same democratic and the same sovereignist idea like us. I have heard people say the position of Vice President is tailor-made of President Ousmane Sonko. Have they really read the program? Because the program says that the Vice President that we have proposed must be elected in tandem with the President. But yeah, I do not believe that the President is in tandem with me to be elected. So it cannot concern President Kendena. If it were not to come into force in the proposed format, it will only be so in 2029. And in this case, it will be the fruit of broad consultation, because I believe in dialogue. When it is frank, sincere, and when it has an objective from which we want to draw something consensual to be in a progressive dynamic for this country, there is no political leader who refuses that. But what there is to understand, and that we will not wait until 2029 to do it, in the diagnosis of all our programs, and this came to light in 2013 when we were not yet in politics. The reform project, the National Commission for the Reform of Institutions, the CMRI, delivers a conclusion in December 2013. At that time, I think we were in the process of writing the statute of Bassirou because we held the General Assembly of Bassirou January 4, 2014. Therefore, when the CNRI observed that the President of the Republic of Senegal concentrated too much power and crushes all the other powers, we were not even in politics yet. So this observation, if in 10 years later we share it today, so as to have to seek to provide remedy But it is because those who are there have not taken charge of the conclusion of the reform of the National Commission for the Reform of Institutions. And we all remember what he said when he received it. I will only take what interests me. We need, therefore, reduce the powers of the President of the Republic. And if we have the candidate who is transparent and who does not wait to be elected to eliminate the position of Prime Minister to renew it after, who says that in the perspective of the reduction of the power of the President of the Republic, even if the National Commission for the Reform of Institutions simply tells the executive that it is necessary to rebalance the powers because the institutionalization of the government in the Constitution of 2021 even proceeds from his logic of strengthening the power of the government and rebalance a little bit with the President of the Republic, which has not been done. So he proposed that there be this rebalancing between the President of the Republic and the Prime Minister. So if there is something that we have to reproach me as President of the Republic, it would be to relieve me of a lot of power to rebalance with the one who will be the Prime Minister under my magisterium. But I said that we had to go further, and that is effective because there are not these exchanges that we do not have, that there are aspects that you noted earlier with relevance which have not been got out, but the logic remains that it is necessary to reduce the powers of the President of the Republic, give more prerogative to the Prime Minister to enable him to carry out his missions correctly, to apply correctly his mission, and above all, to put an end to the fact that the President of the Republic crushes with all his power the other powers, namely the legislative and the judiciary. I think that over the last 2 years, most of everything we have experienced in Senegal is due to court decisions. We have even reached the point of illustrating the fact that the President of the Republic crushes the judiciary, that decisions rendered by judges were not applied because we were just in a logic of adversity and liquidation of a political adversary, that the President, who is the boss of the executive and therefore of the administration, said to the agents of the administration not to apply the court decisions. So these facts must stop, and we would be doing a great service to this country. We are losing a lot of lives in this country, a lot of injuries, a lot of damage, a lot of negative energy, and finally, we are compromising what we have most seriously, namely national cohesion, just because a man wants to concentrate more than he can bear in terms of power. The best service we can provide to this country is to restore the dignity of justice. The best service we can give back to this country is to rebalance these powers so that Senegal is truly democratic, and I am committed to that. And I have read many candidate programs which are ultimately not taken, or which are taken, as the case of Do Abid and the President Sheikh Tijam. We all arrive at the same conclusion and the same solution. Fundamentally, the other aspect, it is also land, where we have a National Land Reform Commission, where the conclusions are not applied due to a lack of political courage. We have forgotten that resources are not simply extractive or mining resources, and that resources are not simply the financial resources that we obtain by rising taxes. Land is an extremely valuable resource for all the candidates today wants to build its economic program on agriculture. We will never be able to do that with the law on the national domain, which says that the land does not belong to anyone, that we cannot valorize with any bank, No bank will commit to financing an agricultural project when the land is an asset that belongs to practically no one. Not possible. All the bankers will tell you. So the land reform that we intend to carry out to support this agriculture have been adequately financed. But it is land reform which must grant land titles to operating cooperatives, and you had already announced it in your book Solutions for a New Senegal, namely small family farmers, and it is a model which has succeeded in almost everywhere, particularly in Vietnam or in other countries. Without this, there will be no food sovereignty in this country. And we always continue to remain on this common trend of sovereignty of our country to guarantee its prosperity, and by reforming the institutions so that we have true justice in this country. There is another point, and it is on this last one that I am going to stop, because we will not be able to go over certain aspects of the program as well. This is a point that has rural hydraulics. Me, I know because I have experienced it. When I was a student, we did not have faucet at home. I was at Lena. We took our scholarship there, which had increased compared to the universities at a given time. We were paid at once. I took that. I went to dig to have a tap in our home. And from this tap, other households who didn't even have these resources connected, they had access to drinking water, which they avoid a lot of illnesses. But since we made the special delegations underwater, I pay more bills for water in the village than I pay in Diakhar, even though there are more resources in Diakhar than in the villages there, which are totally popularized. So we also need to review the management of rural water, because households in rural areas are suffering terribly. I think that there are many aspects of our program that you have seen. I know that you are an ordained defender of it, because from prison I follow your debate not later than before. I follow Abdurrahman Diouf with relief President Abdurrahman Diouf El Mahdia, and yesterday before leaving we had already started to look at our Din and the Durabib, and I see that everywhere you have all been excellent defenders of this program, and this simply attests to a fact. To conclude, it is that we are all on the same rope. It is this project which unites us all, and it is this project which must take Senegal out of despair, which sends its children by the thousands to die in the waves of the Atlantic. I thank you.